Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do beer stuff here. I don't know how I have not reviewed this beer. I've reviewed its base. That's the word I'm looking for. It's barrel-aged version. Barrel-aged old Rasputin. Now here's the thing. I don't trust YouTube anymore, or at least their database when I search it. If you have a YouTube channel, you can go and you can actually search all your content. And you type in keywords like any other search, and it shows you all your stuff. If I type in old Rasputin, I could have certainly spelled it wrong in the title. All I get is one review of this beer. I know, or the base. And that's it, not the barrel-aged version. I know I reviewed the base twice. I know it for a fact, because I reviewed it once, talked about how I'm not a big fan of old Rasputin. I think it's way too hyper bitter for a traditional Russian Imperial Stout. And I went back a few years later and did it again and said, yep, think the same way. I know I've had this barrel-aged version, different years of it, over several times and iterations and all that fun stuff. Apparently, based off of YouTube's algorithm, I have never reviewed it. So we're going to review it, but we're just going to call it a Massive Beer Review Classics anyway, because it is a classic. It's a beer that's been around for a long, long time from a brewery that has made very, very good beer for a long, long time. Let's dive into it. So we have North Coast. It's bourbon barrel aged old Rasputin. This is XXV, so 25. Never Say Die. Okay. North Coast Brewing Company, independent since 1988. Old Rasputin, Russian Imperial Stout, stout aged in bourbon barrels, product of the USA. It's 11.2% alcohol by volume, and that's all we get. Yeah. I should do a side-by-side, but yeah. Because I'm not a big fan of Old Rasputin, the base. Just too bittering for me. Not that it's, like, unpalatable. I like my Russian Imperial Stouts to be like Courage Russian Imperial Stouts or Black Albert or stuff that I deem, the OGs of the world when it comes to Russian Imperial Stouts, and this tends to be quite bitter. Now, the barrel on this typically tempers that quite a bit, so we'll see where we're at. Label-wise, it's a freaking banger of a label. It always has been. I love this art design on this label, something about it. Always been a fan. Anyway, beer-wise, that looks like a stout. Malted malt ball colored head, maybe a little darker than that. And it says rich mahogany darkness to it. You can't really glean any kind of light to it, even if I hold it up to a light that you can't see. But it just around the edges, you get that mahogany tones on it, so it looks the part of a nice big stout. Let's see if we can nose. Ooh. Okay. I expected this precursor of bittering that I typically get from a lot of old Rasputins, or every single old Rasputin I've ever had, even ones with age on it. That's a lot of barrel. That's a lot of barrel in there. It's got me a little bit kind of hot and bothered and quite excited for what's going on here. Big, rich roasted malts. Nothing too overtly precursor of bittering here. But man, there is a rubbed chocolate chariness going on. There's a bit of coconut, a bit of vanilla going on here, a little bit of sweet bourbon. Very, very, without being hot. There's no heat. It's a singe to your nose kind of thing going on. It's more barrel than spirit. But you get the spirit in there, and you still get the beer too. There's levels to it. I'd go barrel and spirit and beer kind of tied at the second level. But it has this really nice, rich, like old school, delicious-y, desserty beer vibe to it. Before we actually put all the dessert components into a beer and called it a dessert beer, you pretty much got that from a nice barrel-aged beer. You get the, again, vanilla, coconut, those kind of things, marshmallows, with that nice kind of chocolate component. Not gonna lie to you. It doesn't, punch you in the face aromatically, but it smells pretty damn nice. Let's dive in. Cheers, y'all. That is not what I expected. Man, that's desserty. Okay, there is a little bit of bourbon heat here. Not hot, but there's a little bit of bourbon heat in a very, very cool way. The beer is there. It's bittering. But I think when you talk about the ABV level, the sweetness of the bourbon, all that kind of stuff, barrel aging is going to temper a bit of the bitterness of the base. It's not nearly as aggressive bittering as what I thought it would be, especially being a fresh one. This is for all I know, it's only been out a couple months, so it's not like it's in like an aged version of this beer. And the biggest portion of it is the dessertiness of it. There's almost like a milkshake level, kind of creamy, sweet, chocolatey, coconutiness to this beer that I haven't had from a lot of beers. It's not unique. It's not something I've never had before, but it's super hard to get this level. I keep wanting to lean back and think like chocolate milkshake from McDonald's. It has that kind of thing going for it. Milk chocolate, coconut, vanilla, marshmallow, that combination. And it's such a creamy, and it's such a bizarre mind F. Because, you know, when I think about Old Rasputin, I think of aggressiveness. I think of bristly beer. I think of a beer that is unforgiving. That beer that is just like, it is what it is. It's hyper-aggressively bittering, and it's going to show no quarter, and it's going to attack your taste buds. And to get this level of richness and silkiness and creaminess from this beer is bonkers. Is absolutely bonkers. It's like it's the total. It's bizarre Old Rasputin. The barrel has tamed this beer. It could be like people always laugh when I say this. People say, you don't like Old Rasputin, and this is what I say. I do like Old Rasputin with like 15 to 20 years on it. And they go, ha ha ha, that's funny. And then I just nod my head, laugh, and then in my brain I go, I'm being serious. I like Old Rasputin when it has 15 to 20 years on it. That's when I think it starts getting good, because how aggressive and how bittering it is and how just one-sided it is. And the barrel has managed to taste. Now, granted, they could totally do a different base beer for this to go in the barrels. North Coast is, they know what they're doing. I doubt they're taking exact Old Rasputin and putting in a barrel. I don't think so. Could be wrong. North Coast, you want to reach out and prove me wrong? You're more than welcome. Be a fun live video. Anyway, just to go from that. Now I wish I did a side by side. Just to go from that level of aggressiveness now to this is insane. So back to the beer. Mouthfeel. It's like almost like porter-esque. It's a stout with porter-like kind of creamy vibes to it, and that goes a lot to the way of that sweetness, I think, because it sets the stage for this beer to be the way it is. As far as the beer is concerned, it's bittering. It's a Russian Imperial Stout. You obviously, you drink it, you get a nice bittering from a roasted malt, you get a nice bittering from a hop, but again, keep in mind we're talking about Old Rasputin here, we're not talking about Courage, so it's very, very much tempered based off of what Old Rasputin typically is. And then we just move on to the barrel portion of the show. A bourbon is there. Like I said, there's a touch of heat to it at the beginning. Not hot by any stretch, but you're drinking something with spirits with it. I'm at sip 5 or 6 now, so it's totally burned off. There's none of that there. That's how small that heat is. It's more of an initial kind of thing. And then there's the barrel, which is absolutely 1,000% star of the show in a very cool way. More often than not, when one portion of the show here, if we're going to break it down into 3 components, the beer, the spirit, and the barrel, if one is so much further out forward than everything else, I tend to view that as a negative. I want the all work in harmony and be very cohesive. They're working here, they're working together, but they're letting the barrel shine here in a very, very beautiful way, and I think it works absolute wonders for the beer because it is that combination. It is that combination of rubbed, I always call it like a rubbed chocolate. It's like if you were to take like a piece of campfire wood and just smother it in milk chocolate and rub it around. It's kind of like that. Obviously it makes sense. It's a barrel-aged beer, but you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you do. Otherwise you think I'm a psychopath. And then you go to that confectionery side of things, that marshmallow, vanilla, coconut combination, without being overly sweet by any stretch of the imagination, just adds this super, again, McDonald's milkshakey-esque. Again, we're not talking literal terms here, but that just nice, rich chocolate milkshake that just works so well in something like this. I think it's fantastic. My wife texted me. I had to look. That's really good. That's really good. I am 100% happy that I bought this beer, especially at the price point. We'll get that in a little bit. So yeah, I don't know what else I want to say. Words are hard. It's just a very, very tasty beer and a very well done beer. And honestly, it's, you know, it's having an old Rasputin and going to this is just mind blowing stuff that just kind of. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about it. This is one of the better barrel aged stouts that I've had. As like, yes, it's a Mount Rushmore status. Pump the brakes. It's not one of the 4 best I've had in the past year or so, but it's really tasty and in the conversation. If I were to go to just barrel aged, like old guard barrel aged stouts, and by old guard I mean breweries that have existed more than 10 to 15 years, it's much, much closer, and if not on there. Value and availability. This one's a little bit weird because I'm 99% sure I bought this at a place that put it on the shelf at the base beer price. Accidentally. I paid $11.99 for a 4-pack of this. I'm almost positive that is the price for the base. I think this comes in typically closer to $17, $18 4-pack. But you know, $11, $12. I'm never not buying this. I might go back to that place and buy a case of it at that price point because I think it is going to age really well also. So your mileage may vary, but I will say this. If I bought this 4-pack and it was $17 a 4-pack, I'd be 100% okay with it. 100%. And leave you with, if you like what we like this. If you like Russian Imperial Stouts and barrels, and you like a little desserty vibes, old school desserty vibes, where the dessert's not actually in the beer, it just tastes like it, you will love this. So there you go. Review in the books. Hopefully you enjoyed. Old Rasputin, North Coast. Have you been to the brewery? Have you had their beers? What's your favorite beer? Old stock. But Old Rasputin, what are your thoughts on the beer? What are your thoughts on the base? What are your thoughts on the barrel? Have you had those beers back and forth over the years? Have you had this particular vintage, the 25? Any of that fun stuff. Let's talk about Old Rasputin, North Coast, all that fun stuff down there. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Hopefully you enjoyed a little barrel-aged goodness. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers, y'all.